Hey there, folks. Imagine this. You're sitting alone in your cozy living room on a quiet autumn evening, the kind where the leaves are turning gold and red outside your window in a small Midwestern town. And suddenly, a wave of emptiness hits you so hard it feels like the world just pulled the rug out from under your feet. That's the reality for so many of us as we get older. And today, I want to share a story that might just hit close to home. A tale of heartbreak, resilience, and that flickering light of hope we all chase in our toughest moments. Let me take you back to a place that feels like the heart of America. A modest ranch-style house in suburban Ohio, where the neighbors wave from their porches, and the local diner serves the best apple pie you've ever tasted. Our story centers on a woman in her mid-60s, someone who's lived a full life, but now finds herself grappling with the shadows of depression and loneliness that creep in when the kids have grown up and flown the nest, and the daily routines start feeling like echoes in an empty hallway. We'll call her Ellen for this tale, though her experiences could belong to any one of us or our loved ones. Ellen grew up in the era of drive-in movies, bell-bottom jeans, and family barbecues on the 4th of July, where life seemed straightforward: work hard, raise a family, and retire with a pension and a rocking chair on the porch. Ellen was born in 1961, right in the thick of the baby boom generation, in a bustling factory town where her dad worked the assembly line at the local auto plant, and her mom baked cookies for the PTA meetings. She remembers those summers vividly, riding her bike down tree-lined streets, the smell of fresh-cut grass mixing with the distant hum of lawnmowers, and evenings spent at the community pool, splashing around with friends until the sun dipped low. Life was simple back then, full of promise. Ellen dreamed of becoming a teacher, inspired by her own third-grade instructor who made learning feel like an adventure. She went to the state university on a partial scholarship, majored in education, and landed her first job teaching elementary school kids in the same district where she grew up. Oh, the joy in those early years, watching little faces light up when they grasped a new concept, grading papers late into the night with a cup of hot cocoa, and feeling like she was making a real difference. But life, as we all know, throws curveballs. Ellen met her husband, Tom, at a church picnic in her 20s. He was a kind-hearted mechanic with a laugh that could fill a room, and they built a life together. They bought that ranch house in the suburbs, planted a garden in the backyard with tomatoes and zucchini that they'd harvest for homemade salsa, and raised 2 kids, a boy and a girl, who filled their home with laughter, scraped knees, and endless soccer practices. Weekends were for family road trips to the Great Lakes, stopping at roadside stands for fresh corn and cherries, or cozying up for movie nights with popcorn and root beer floats. Ellen thrived in that chaos. It gave her purpose, a reason to get up each morning with a smile. Fast forward to her 50s, and things started shifting. The kids went off to college, one to Ohio State, the other to a school out in California. And suddenly, the house felt too big, too quiet. Tom retired early due to a back injury from years of wrenching on cars, and while they had more time together, the spark seemed to fade a bit. They'd sit on the porch swing, watching the fireflies dance in the summer twilight, but conversations turned to doctor's appointments and bills rather than dreams and adventures. Then, tragedy struck. Tom passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack one crisp fall morning in 2018. Ellen was making coffee in the kitchen, the aroma of fresh brew filling the air, when she heard him collapse in the living room. The paramedics came, but it was too late. That day, her world shattered like a dropped glass on the tile floor. The grief was overwhelming, a heavy blanket that smothered her days. Ellen found herself wandering the house, touching his old flannel shirts still hanging in the closet, smelling the faint scent of his aftershave. Friends and neighbors rallied at first. Casseroles piled up on the doorstep. Sympathy cards filled the mailbox. But as months turned into years, the visits dwindled. The kids called when they could, but they had their own lives now. Jobs, spouses, grandkids on the way. Ellen's daughter lived across the country, sending photos of beach vacations in sunny LA, while her son was busy with his family in a nearby city, juggling work and little league games. She understood life moves on, but understanding didn't fill the void. Depression snuck in like fog rolling over the Ohio River on a chilly morning. It started small, sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of family holidays around the Thanksgiving table, with turkey and all the fixings, laughter echoing through the dining room. Then it grew. Days where getting out of bed felt impossible, the weight of loneliness pressing down like an invisible force. Ellen would sit at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of tea, gazing out at the backyard where the swing set still stood, rusted and unused, a relic of happier times. She'd think about how she used to host neighborhood block parties, grilling burgers and hot dogs, with kids running around playing tag under the string lights. Now, the yard was overgrown, and invitations to social events felt like obligations she couldn't muster the energy for. Loneliness amplified everything. Holidays were the worst, Christmas with its twinkling lights and carols on the radio, reminding her of decorating the tree with Tom and the kids, hanging ornaments that told stories of family vacations to Disney World or skiing in the Appalachians. She'd try to put on a brave face, baking cookies from her mom's old recipe, but the house echoed with silence. Easter brunches at the local church, where she'd once volunteered to hide eggs for the kids' hunt, now felt hollow without someone to share the joy. Even simple things like grocery shopping at the Walmart down the road became ordeals. Seeing families pushing carts filled with snacks for movie nights or school lunches stirred a deep ache in her chest. Ellen tried to fight it. She joined a book club at the community center, where a group of retirees gathered to discuss the latest bestsellers over coffee and donuts. At first, it was awkward sharing opinions on stories of love and loss, feeling like an outsider among people who seemed to have it together. But slowly, connections formed. There was Margaret, a widow like her, who shared tales of road trips across Route 66 in her youth, stopping at diners for milkshakes and burgers. And Bob, a retired veteran who cracked jokes that lightened the mood, reminding everyone of the resilience baked into the American spirit. These meetings became lifelines, small beacons in the darkness. Yet the lows persisted. There were days when depression wrapped around her like a cold winter wind whipping through the streets of Cleveland during a snowstorm. She'd curl up on the couch, wrapped in a quilt her grandmother had sewn, watching reruns of old sitcoms like Friends or The Golden Girls, laughing through tears at the camaraderie that mirrored what she missed. Nostalgia hit hard memories of summer fairs with cotton candy and Ferris wheels, or autumn hayrides through pumpkin patches, picking out the perfect one for carving jack-o'-lanterns. Empathy for others in similar boats grew. She'd scroll through Facebook, seeing posts from old classmates about their empty nests, and feel a kinship in the shared silence. Hope flickered in unexpected places. One spring, Ellen decided to volunteer at the local animal shelter, walking dogs along the leafy paths of the nearby park, feeling the tug of a leash and the wag of a tail brought a spark of joy. There was a golden retriever named Buddy who reminded her of the family pet from years ago, the one that used to curl up at her feet during stormy nights. Interacting with the animals, chatting with fellow volunteers about everything from baseball games, Go Indians, or Guardians Now, to the best spots for Friday fish fries during Lent, rebuilt her sense of community. It wasn't a cure, but it was a step, a reminder that life could still hold warmth. Emotional highs came in waves too. A surprise visit from her grandkids one weekend turned the house alive again, little feet pattering across the hardwood floors, giggles filling the air as they baked chocolate chip cookies together, flour dusting the counters like fresh snow. Ellen felt a surge of love, a nostalgia mixed with gratitude, as she watched them play in the yard, swinging on that old set she'd thought about dismantling. It was a high that carried her through the following weeks, a reminder of the bonds that endure. But the lows returned as they do. A particularly rough winter, with blizzards blanketing the neighborhood in white, left her isolated. Power outages meant huddling by the fireplace with a flashlight, reading old letters from Tom, tears streaming down her face. Sadness for lost time, for the dreams they never chased, like that cross-country RV trip they'd planned, but never took. She sought help, finally scheduling an appointment with a therapist through her Medicare plan, talking it out, sharing the weight of her emotions in a cozy office with soft lighting and tissues on the table. Felt like unloading a backpack she'd carried for miles. As the story unfolds, Ellen's journey teaches us something profound. In the vast tapestry of American life, from the bustling cities to the quiet suburbs, we're all vulnerable to these silent battles. Depression and loneliness don't discriminate. They touch the teacher who shaped young minds, the mechanic who fixed our cars, the everyday heroes who build our communities. But there's hope in connection, in reaching out, whether it's joining a senior center for bingo nights with prizes of homemade jams, or picking up the phone to call an old friend for a chat about the good old days of tailgating at football games. Ellen started a small garden club in her neighborhood, inviting folks over for potlucks where they'd share seeds and stories under the shade of maple trees. It grew into something beautiful, a network of support, where laughter mingled with tears and empathy flowed like the Mississippi River. She found solace in simple pleasures, morning walks in the crisp air, listening to podcasts about history while sipping coffee from her favorite mug, or attending concerts at the local amphitheater, feeling the bass thrum through her as bands played classic rock hits from her youth. Through it all, the emotional roller coaster shaped her. Highs of rediscovering hobbies, like knitting scarves for charity drives during the holidays, donating them to shelters where families gathered for warmth. Lows of holidays alone, but learning to create new traditions, like video calls with the kids, sharing virtual toasts with eggnog. Nostalgia for the past fueled her forward, remembering barbecues with ribs slathered in sauce, fireworks lighting up the sky on Independence Day, and the sense of belonging that came with it. In the end, Ellen's story isn't just about survival. It's about thriving in the face of adversity. She learned that it's okay to feel broken, to let the sadness wash over you like rain on a parched field, because it makes way for growth. Americans are resilient. We've weathered economic downturns, natural disasters like hurricanes tearing through the South or wildfires in the West, and personal storms that test our souls. Reaching out to a hotline, a friend, a professional isn't weakness, it's strength, the kind that built this nation. So as we wrap up this tale, think about your own life or someone you know. Maybe it's that neighbor who waves but never stops to chat, or the family member whose calls have grown shorter. Extend a hand, share a meal, perhaps a classic American pot roast with mashed potatoes, or just listen. Because in the end, we're all in this together, chasing that light through the darkness, one step at a time. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect and remember, hope is always there, waiting to be found. Thanks for listening, friends. Stay strong out there